Hey, welcome back to Happy Hour here on the Craft Beer Runner. Today we have a fellow YouTuber, Rod J. Rod J, you want to say hi and introduce yourself real quick?
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Rod J from Rod J BeerVentures. I don't know what else you want me to say. I'll go wait for the questions.
What are you drinking right now?
Right now, I just cracked open one from Sweetwater Brewing Company. It is their Trainwreck, which is their part of their G13 420 series. It's a hazy double IPA. This was the latest in the group to come out. Comes in with an ABV of 8%. And if you don't know what 420 is, got Urban Dictionary. I don't want to give you out aware of it, but they've actually done really well coming up with a hop to imitate the 420. And their G13 is the hop they use, I believe, is the G13 strain. And different versions of it. This one is, like I said, the hazy double IPA. On the label, it doesn't really give you as much. I mean, outside you get the pine and stuff like that you're kind of used to, some vanilla. But if you look at their other ones, they have the base version, which is really good. They also have a mango kush, which is like an orange wheat type version. And out of California, they have the Be Real version, of course, Be Real from Cypress Hill, and what they did there too. So they have an insane version, which is pretty sweet. So this is the fourth one.
All right, and then I'm drinking from here in Seattle, Urban Family. It's their Guava Dawn. They do barrel-aged sours. Let's pour this one out.
I should say Sweetwater's out of Georgia.
Cheers, Rod. Thank you for coming on today.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.
So, Rod, you've been on YouTube for what, 5.5 years? Is that correct?
Yeah, 5.5 years. That'd be correct.
Right. What got you motivated to start a YouTube channel?
Pretty much actually my wife. So I never really wanted to do YouTube as much, but my background is in journalism, marketing, and advertising, stuff like that and everything. And I've kind of tooled around with social media stuff. So I pretty much gained a bunch of knowledge around beer, and she's a big YouTube fan. She's a bigger fan than I am at YouTube. And she basically back in 2015 urged me to start a YouTube channel, which at first I was like, do I want to do that? Like, if I'm not having a beer, why would I want to watch a guy have a beer? Because that would just make me want to have a beer, right? So she's like, oh, no, you got this and that, and people watching, tuning in. So I went ahead and started launching the channel and doing different things. And 5.5 years later, here I am, and YouTube's going well. And that's led to Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and all other stuff that's kind of starting to run now, too. So it's been a fun run, and been through a lot of beers.
Right. And you also have a blog and news aggregator for beer news, correct?
Yeah, so I have the rodjbeerventures.com site, which is really the site that has all the links and stuff listed there. But I put the videos, and I put like sometimes articles. I get press releases from breweries. I put that kind of stuff there. So it's not all YouTube. But then I also have like a subscription set up to like Paperly, which actually will give you that every day, essentially like 5 top beer stories or so. And people can kind of stay on top of some of the beer things happening. So that's a nice thing. You can get that like in your email if you want to get that there. And then outside of that, it's mainly Twitter, Facebook, all these other different sites that I'm on. I'm doing videos like on D Live. Don't know what D Live is, but I do videos on them. Do videos on Twitch. I'm trying to do a different thing there as well because they have more chatting sites they're trying to build. And Rod J BeerVentures and Google will bring up a ton of stuff anybody that searches for it. So I guess my footprint has been made.
So if someone goes visits your channel right now, they'll be seeing beer reviews. They'll be seeing, I believe you recently posted some mystery beers. You want to talk about your mystery beer challenge?
Yeah, so that was interesting. It was the first time I did mystery beer. So one of the other guys that I know, Sean, he does Nerd Sense. If you ever check out their channel, they do beer as well and beer reviews. He sent me some beers, and we've been kind of taking a look at the Blackest Beautiful beers. He had a couple of breweries that I didn't have here that he wanted to send me a couple. Didn't know he was going to put in a box couple mystery beers that he wrapped up. So there's a thing that goes around the beer tube community where you get a mystery beer, you try to guess the beer, you try to guess the style, if you can, maybe the ABV. And it's the first time I did on the channel. First time I went to go live, I was having issues, so I recorded. The second time I actually went live, and it's really a unique experience because you're reliant a lot on your senses, of course. You're not looking at anything, so you don't have anything getting in your head ahead of time. The only problem you run into is how you should drink that beer. So there's certain beers and certain beer styles you want to drink at certain temperatures. You don't really know what is what until you take it out. So with that one, I did take them out a little early in the cooler. A lot of times I let them sit for a bit before I drink them because that opens up the aromas and the flavor when you do so. But I did that, and it was unique. It was something different. The first one I did, I was actually pretty close, but I was off because the style that he sent me was so close to the style I chose, which I actually thought it might have been an India Pale Ale and a double India Pale Ale because I had been recently going through some of that style, but it was actually an American Pale Ale. And those two are about as thin as you can get in between any type of style. So you get the same things with citrus, you get same stuff with floral, you get some same tropical citrus fruit action, but it's just that difference in how it's presented. One has a little bit more on this and one has a little bit more on that. So I was okay with it. I was fine. I felt like I was close enough. I mean, technically I did have Pale Ale. I both have Pale Ale in their name, but it was fun. It was fun to do that. And if you end up ever going for your Cicerone, part of the thing is you have to do blind tastings. So that's also a pretty cool thing to just try to start doing those things. So that was good.
Right. And then the second one, it was kind of more of a little more obscure style that got you.
Yeah. And Baltic Porter is a tricky one. And that's the thing. So I said in the video, and I was 100% honest, when I was going through and tasted, in my head, it was saying Baltic Porter, like, but then it's become like when you go back to when you were in school and you took a test and you're like, no, it can't be that answer. So you change it to the other one. So it was like the Baltic Porter has a lot of similarities that you can actually push over to porters or stouts. Difference between a Baltic Porter is actually a lager too, by the way. A lot of people think it's still an ale, but it's actually a lager the way it's made. And I had that in my head, but I'm thinking, no, he wouldn't have got a Baltic Porter. It's got to be like a porter. And it just, so I didn't miss that one. Although I hit a lot of the notes and characteristics about the beer, it just wasn't fully the right style. So, yeah, he tripped me up on that one very nicely. So I'll give him points for that.
So one thing you just mentioned after the first video about the first blind taste test is about the Cicerone, the blind taste test, and that. Now we were talking beforehand, and you were saying how you have the books, you know the skills. Is a Cicerone something you want to pursue? If not, why not? And if so, what's your plan for that?
Cicerone is something nice to get. If I was in the industry working, I mean, this is kind of my hobby and stuff. I'm getting more and more involved. It's definitely the side thing. It's not the main thing I do during the course of the day, right? Because I'm working and doing my day job. If I was in the industry, I'd be more apt to get to it, I think. But from the experience I've had and the people I've actually met in the industry, a lot of people haven't really said you really needed it. Some think it can help, but some are like, well, if you got the knowledge, you'll get noticed and all that kind of stuff. So I know a lot of guys in the industry that don't have the Cicerone thing, but it's something that I may do at some point. But you can do the first level is your beer server certification, right? And then you got to do a test, I believe. I want to say it's like 12 minutes or whatever. And you got to answer as quick as you can through the test, and that's just on your computer. After that, you get to the Cicerone one, which when you go to the Cicerone one, then it's starting to, you have to know like all flavors, like when you smell like sulfur or something, if it's supposed to be there, or some of the things that, can pop up, and you're doing blind tasting like we do with the mystery type beers. And then after that, you have the advanced Cicerone, which is taken it to a next level. And then after that, you have the master Cicerone. The master Cicerone is the hierarchy. And to tell you how hard it is to get to the master Cicerone, there's only 16 master Cicerones in the world for all the stuff you have to do. I mean, you're basically knowing what a beer is down the block and around the corner. That's how much detail you're going to know.
You can sniff it out.
You can sniff it out, right? You're looking for a person, they don't even a bloodhound. They just get you because you can already tell all the different scents. But so, I mean, it's definitely something that's out there. It's definitely something to maybe look at going down the line as I get more involved on stuff. But I'll say I've been fortunate to get recognized by different things already from the stuff that I'm starting to do here, that it's almost like, I don't know if I really need that if I have like the street sense to know what it actually is. It's kind of like, I don't know if Michael Jackson was ever one. And Michael Jackson, for those that are watching, is one that was known as the beer hunter. And he was the one that really got a lot of the craft beer and people interested in it. So if you ever get a chance to research Michael Jackson, the beer hunter, he was a guy that went through a lot of the things. But it's not like you ever ask him like if he was a Cicerone or BJCP, because he just has all that stuff. He may be, but it's kind of like if you already know how to do those kind of things, it's like, what were people doing before we had these designations? Well, they were still knowing what they were talking about their beer. I mean, you look at Jim Cook, he knew how to do all that stuff with Boston Beer and Sam Adams without maybe going through a lot of that. So I don't know. I'm up in the air on it. It's kind of a conflict of, is it worth me actually doing it? What do people really think about it? Because sometimes you think it could be just a money play that some group has out there that they picked up on. So we'll see.
Right. And then you told me you're from the Western Ohio area. What's the craft beer scene like out there in the Kentucky, Ohio region?
Yeah, so I'm in northern Kentucky, but the region I'm in is part of Cincinnati. It's considered Cincinnati metro area. Originally, I'm from actually New Jersey, and I came up here after college. The scene here now is actually one of, I would say, probably one of the hidden gems around the country for beer. We actually have, last I checked, we've had a couple of things closed, but the ones that closed that picked back up with other people. So we're definitely 60 plus something breweries in the area. We have a lot of top-notch breweries. We have Jungle Gyms, which is here, and that's actually an international market, but Jungle Gyms is ranked as one of the top 5 places in the country to buy beer. So you get a lot of stuff from around the country. We also have some great stores that bring in stuff like Party Source or Party Town, and just think of some of the things they get in. The cool thing is, part of where I'm at is I get stores that have craft beer that comes in, but there's still a good percentage of macro drinkers. So they don't always buy the craft beer. And some of the craft beer, if you know craft beer, you know how to buy craft beer, you get a lot of good deals, right? So you'll see stuff where it's like a crazy price on something like that should not be that low. It'll be like, I'll give you an example. Avery Brewing, also out of Colorado, they have a beer and it's called, like, say, Uncle Jacob Stout. Usually that's like $13.99 a bottle, like for just your 12-ounce bottle. I have places here that do it for $4.99 just because they have to move stuff off the shelf. So you find all these different opportunities, but they bring them in because we are such a beer drinking area. We have Sam Adams. Jim Cook is from Cincinnati, so he put a brewery here, which was awesome. We have Rheingeist, which was one of the top up-and-coming breweries across the country a couple of years ago. They're doing good beers. I brought buddies that came in and took them around to some of the breweries, and they just loved the scene. They only went to, I think, 4 of the breweries when they're here, and they enjoyed all of them for the most part. So it's kind of like they want to come back and see some of the other stuff. Oktoberfest, we have the biggest Oktoberfest outside of Munich in the world. We get over 500,000 people. Not this year because of Rona, but usually, usually even a ton of people. So that's how
that actually
big.
Sounds fun. I would love to come out to Cincinnati for one of the largest Oktoberfest. That sounds like a lot of fun. Actually.
Yeah, I mean, we get the people that come in from Germany. Out of Germany, there's a brewery, and it's HB, it's Hofbrauhaus. We actually were the first area to actually have them incorporate one of their places outside of Germany. So we get a lot of the influence that comes through, and to be here and be a beer lover is great. I mean, the beer scene is it's crazy. It's just great. And then, of course, in Kentucky, we also got the bourbon, right? Because it's bourbon state where we create bourbon out of Bourbon, Kentucky, and that's where it all started. So we have the bourbon, we have the beer, and we actually have Bourbon Beer Bacon Festival. So you get all the bees.
So aside from the 2 types of videos we're talking about, the beer reviews, where you get a lot of beers in the mail, from the craft beer YouTube world, but you also do the blind taste. But then you do a once a week podcast style live show. Is that Thursday nights? Is that correct?
Yeah, so Thursday nights at 9:15 Eastern, we do the Beer Flow Show, which currently is myself, my buddy Todd, my buddy Eric. Occasionally, Todd's wife Shannon will join us, and we pretty much do it kind of as a podcast. This is my podcast for the channel, where we start off drinking beer, talking about beer, and they kind of go from there wherever the crowd wants to grow. And that's been a growing thing to have that on there. So we just have a bunch of fun with it, and we just get into all different types of things. And it's a great way to lead into the weekend. So
do you have plans for what you want to do with this beer brand you've built? You built the Rod J BeerVentures brand. What do you want to do with this?
It's a good question. I mean, I like being independent. so I can actually do the beer reviews and I can talk about different things. At some point, I thought it'd be kind of cool to maybe build it up into a marketing type thing for some of the firms. But then if you become marketing, and I'm already in a corporate world in my day life, I don't want to have that corporate type tie to me as well. So I can actually look at this. The thing I do with the channel, I tell people is and the thing I go by kind of as a mission statement is to teach people about beer in a fun and educational way. So I'm all about having fun on the videos. I want people to learn, but also we have a great time doing it. So I kind of want to just kind of build that up to be like a fun type brand that people can watch, they can learn, they can interact, and they can be comfortable, when they're finding about beer. So outside of that, it's kind of let's just grow and we'll get on the bus and see where it stops at.
Yeah, and everyone, please go visit Rod's blog, his website. His mission and his value statements are on there. And actually, when I saw that on your website, that actually really stood out. And I think a lot of people don't put a vision statement or even a mission statement out there for a personal blog and or a hobby blog. And I think that's great. And I think it says a lot about who you are, and also it tells people who you are and what you want to do. So
yeah,
that's awesome. I do want to wrap up with the 4 questions I ask all my guests.
okay.
I'm gonna start off with what was your first experience with beer that you can remember? It doesn't have to be craft beer. I think most people's first experience with beer is, the macros. Typically, typically everyone's first experience that I've talked to so far has been around well before 21.
Yeah. Well, my first experience, I guess you could say, with beer, so to speak, is when I was a young kid and at being at my grandparents, and they used to drink the old Miller High Life in the little 8-ounce bottles or like that and everything. And so they don't, they say, go get me a beer out of the fridge or like that and everything. And of course you would get it, but you take the lid off for it to pop the cap. And I would always take like a sip or something out of it. So those are my first, coming into a beer, which at first I was like, why would anybody drink this? And, you have a sip here and there. And again, you're just a kid at that point. But then as you grow up, like during the high school years, having fun with buddies and stuff like that, I remember like us hanging out, drinking some of the Mickeys or drinking. Again, we were in high school, so it was whatever you got your hands on. So a lot of times people would get like 40s just because they were like big bottles and there was a lot of alcohol. So people would do that. You weren't really like getting the bud. Usually the adults were getting Budweiser or something along those lines, but you were just trying to get the maximum buzz type things. And so that kind of got me into the beer there. But then as far as craft itself, it was 2010. We were at a company function. I just joined the company I'm at actually now. And we were out at one of the places for happy hour and wanted to get a beer, didn't know what I wanted. And the bartender, we could try this one over here, see if you like it or whatever. And it was actually the Flower Power from Ithaca Brewing Company out of New York. And that's the one that actually turned me on to find out more about craft beer. So
every style of beer. What are maybe 1 or 2 of your favorite styles of beer? It could be right now. It could be of all time.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned it. There's so many styles that are out there. The more and more I get involved, I find other things that I really enjoy. But it's funny you mentioned Belgian because my favorite style is actually more of the Belgian type ales. I like a good quad or a triple. Even double. I like some of that bigger beer, that sweetness, that clove, that coriander that comes out of some of those. For the longest time, my favorite beer was the Golden Drop 9000. But things like that is Chimay and all of those good things I really dig. But that would be like my favorite style. But then I'm also a big fan of like stouts, especially some of the bigger imperial stouts. I don't want a stout that's too thin. And, I did a video about that before, stouts actually came from porters. So really any stout is a porter, although not all porters are stouts. So when you get too thin, I feel like you're going back to the porter type age because porters are thinner than the stouts for the most part. Now, breweries have kind of blurred that line because they're doing stuff like changing stuff up. And it's like, no, this shouldn't be a porter. This should be a stout and vice versa. But I like a nice stout. I like a nice porter as well. But probably my top ones are the Belgian ales, and then I have the the stouts and then IPAs. I like some of the good, but I like more of the double IPA than a single IPA. When you get a double, it gets a little bit more smoother. It's more malt balanced. So you don't have all the bitterness in your face like an IPA, but you still get that nice touch of bitterness, but you're also getting a more feel of the beer too, more body. So.
Right. Yeah, I've seen you've been drinking a lot of the hazy doubles on your channel recently.
Yeah. that's thanks to Hot Butcher. They sent me beers to actually check out for them. So appreciate that.
So next up, local favorite brewery or two. You're kind of on like a border area, so Northern Kentucky, southwestern Ohio, Greater Cincinnati area. Favorite local brewery or two.
Yeah, I get that question pretty often around here about the breweries, and there's some that have, like I said, like a top three order, but like at right now, the way things are going, Braxton Brewing will probably be my top one at this point because they're doing so many different things, and they've actually had great success. They went from one brewery to now having basically 4 spots around Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky. They went from the brewery to having like their Braxton Labs, which is kind of a small batch processing part where they do experimental brews, to having like a barrel house where they do a lot of barrel aging on stuff, and then taking over another place in Cincinnati for another tap room. They just been blowing up like crazy, doing some really good beers through the area. They would be probably the top of my list. One that I really enjoy that I don't get to as much, and they're one of the smaller breweries. It's actually Street Side Brewing. They do a great job, and they're great on their hazy IPAs, their double IPAs. They've really got it down to a nice knack on putting those beers together and those type of styles. Great little place. Right now, they're still doing okay. I think they might be doing takeout because of the Corona stuff, although you can still get there because they're a smaller type spot, so it's not huge, so they have to be the whole distancing type thing. But they do a really good job on their beers, and then we have another one called a Listerman that does a really good job. And they're actually more known outside the region now because people are really hearing a lot about the stuff they're doing. They sit on Xavier's campus pretty much, so they've got a turnaround of students always eligible. Great spot, location, but they do some great stuff. So those are kind of the ones there. I mentioned Rhinegeist earlier. They're blowing up. They're out towards, like, they got places that people see them in Boston now, Michigan, all other states. They've really grown. And then the other would be Mad Tree that's actually doing the same thing. They're really getting pretty big. So those are kind of the ones that jump out right now. But there's some I haven't even listed that are just as good too. So it's tough. It's tough here. I got good problems.
And then you do try a lot of beer because of the craft exchange. What are maybe one or two of your favorite, doesn't have to be a brewery, but maybe a specific brewery's beer that you like outside of your localized area?
You're talking about from a different region, something that I really like. Well, I'm trying to think. And one of my favorite beers as an Imperial Porter is actually from Ballast Point, and that's their Victory at Sea. I think that's the best Imperial Porter I've had. I've got that ranked as my top one there. A lot of people would do the Goose Island because of the Bourbon County Stout. That's, of course, out of Chicago. There's one that is done by the Claw, that's Sweet Baby Jesus. That's a peanut butter porter. I'm a sucker for peanut butter porters and stouts lately, so if it's on a can, I'm probably going to try it. That was one of the first ones that got me kind of going in that trend, so I did like that one there. Down in Florida, there's Cigar City. They actually had one that was a double IPA called, I think it was Florida Man. That was really good, that I really liked. Trying to think. I went down to, well, I got them, they sent down to me. I've been down to Texas, but Adelbert's actually sent me some of their stuff before to try years ago. And they actually were kind of a Belgian type craft brewery on what they were doing. They had some phenomenal stuff. They had the first one that I had that was a gin barrel beer, and I loved that thing. So you don't think about gin really being involved in barreling, but they did it. Now we're seeing more people do brandy barreling. And speaking of brandy, one of the best beers I've actually had came out of Spain, out of Barcelona, and that was a brandy barrel Imperial Stout that was actually done too. So there's just so many good beers all over the world now that you're finding stuff for the most part. It's incredible. It's a good time to be a beer drinker.
Right. Before I wrap it up, I actually wanted to bring in one more thing. I circle back to you mentioned you were doing on your live show, I believe, recently, the various productions of The Black is Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because I actually have a can in my fridge from Fremont Brewing up here in Seattle. I haven't popped that one
Nice.
yet. I need to pop that one. Maybe this weekend.
Yeah.
But it's a fascinating thing what they're doing, and so you were able to try different varieties of it. Like, how have the you know how have each of the varieties been slightly different or much different?
Well, I haven't cracked any of them open yet, but I have 7 different varieties right now. And the reason I haven't cracked them open yet is because, as you saw on the channel, I had like beers that was sent to me for Hot Butcher to actually try. So I wanted to get through those since they were kind of to send them to me. And again, in thinking of the beer world, like if someone sends you like IPAs or double IPAs, you usually want to drink those earlier so you get all that hop out of it. So
Yeah.
that kind of pushed the stouts to the back. So since most of the Black is Beautiful is stouts, so it's like, oh, I'll wait a week or two before I get into these. So I'm going to actually start doing that probably this weekend, and I'll do some of those live as well. But I'm looking forward to trying those. Sean, that I mentioned earlier from Nerd Sense, he actually got me one for Finback, which Finback does phenomenal beers also. And then I forgot who the other one came from. But yeah, that plus the other ones I got. And more breweries are coming out with them now. So when they came up with the idea, like people were saying, was they didn't see it at some of the breweries. Well, you got to remember, it takes some time to brew as well. So now you start to see more people put their beers out there. But I'm looking forward to trying it. So
Yeah, hopefully by the time this video gets posted, your videos will already be up there with the Black is
yeah,
Beautiful, and I'm looking forward to the Fremont variety of it.
I've heard a lot of
Ro-
good things about Fremont too. So yeah.
yeah, I mean, hopefully you eventually will be able to travel up to Seattle. You say you have a friend up here,
Oh,
so
I'd love to get to Seattle. Yeah, that's
I,
that's on the spot to visit.
we have over 80 craft breweries right now in Seattle.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm not sure if that's in Seattle or the Greater Puget Sound area, but there's new ones popping up. There was a new one that popped up a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Even throughout this, people are still opening breweries. It gives us a lot of variety, and people up here just like to support local businesses. So
Yeah, yeah. Seattle is going to be like a cross country visit. I don't mean like drive cross country, but we want to go to Seattle to see that, but also go to Vancouver and see Canada up there too. So that'll be great. So that's one of our things to go to the Pac Northwest and see that. My wife would like us to get an RV and drive cross country, and I'm like, I'm not driving this big old truck out there. She's like, oh, but you can drive it and we can stop. Like, I'm not driving.
yeah. Well, I mean, even if you just did a cross country road trip,
Yeah,
from where you are to here, you're going
yeah.
to pass through a lot of areas that have good craft scenes along the
Oh
way.
yeah, yeah. And
And
I
so,
think
I mean, you'd pick up a lot of beers. Make sure you bring some ice or dry ice and a cooler to keep the beers fresh. Rod, I really appreciate your time today. Thank you for coming on here. Everyone, please go visit Rod J BeerVentures channel here on YouTube. Visit his blog. I'll leave the links below. Like this video. Please subscribe to my channel for we do happy hour every Thursday. Got to talk to someone either I know or I get to meet in the craft beer world, whether they're brewers, home brewers, or fans of craft beer. So Rod, cheers! Thanks for coming on.
cheers. Thank you. Thanks for having me.